complete. Ground gas closeouts. F9 is in startup.
This is ELD. Go for launch.
The last day she smoked or drink anything because she felt she wasn't proud of what she was doing because the influence, not this is the granddaughter telling her that a little girl, when I grow up, I want to be like grandma. So if we drinking in secret, smoking in secret, committing all kinds of immorality in secret, God sees us. But the point is that we cannot even hide everything we're doing because our children, the followers, they are watching. And a lot can be said right here. It's not everything right here that was said that we're going to apply. It's our character, our attitude, our behavior. And that's why Paul said we are epistle, written and read by all men. This is the word of life. But it's the application in our life that people see. They say, oh, well, look at them. It's a Christ follower. We can cook stories up and read like we're reading news. But what is our life about? What are we talking about? What is our life preaching the gospel? So today, I want you to hold that in your hand. What legacy would you leave behind if you have to move from your position to another position, your followers, your children, or those people you are leading? Today, we will continue, and we are closing at the same time, about the series, The Heart of a King, Lessons from the Life of King David. We have seen so many faces of King David. We have seen him right from March 7th through so many weeks and months. We have seen David as a giant slayer. We have seen David as the king of Israel, Israel's great ruler. David the psalmist, repentance and praise, song of praise. Faith, David the sinner. David the loyal friend. David the shepherd boy. And I'll just say a little bit about how I see myself moving within this David many faces. Myself, just a little bit. Pastor John wants me to say a little about the call into the ministry. I won't take your time. It's a long story, but I'll make it very brief. Some other times we'll talk about that. I woke up this morning and I said, what is today? And today, 1st of August. And what does that look like to me? What does that say to me? And I remember it's a Sabbath day. And I remember I was born on the Sabbath day, very early in the morning, before the dawn. And I said, okay, in 1998, August 1st, I was baptized. And I said, oh, that's true. This was around 3:45 this morning when I woke up. I was thinking about this. It never came to my mind before. And I said, oh, I was baptized 1998, August 1st, on the Sabbath. And then I look at it again, And I said, I was sent to Stone Hill August 1st. Is that how it is? 2023, August 1st, I was sent to Stone Hill August 1st. And today, Pastor John said, I want you to preach August 1st. And I was just thinking, I said, this is not a mere coincidence. This is a divine appointment. Thank you, Pastor John, for giving me the privilege to do that. So, a call into the pastoral ministry. I like to read from the book of Amos, chapter 7, verses 12 to 15. Zedekiah, one of the priests, was accusing Amos for preaching the gospel. And Amos said, Amaziah said, Amos said, well, I am not a prophet. Let's read. Then Amaziah said to Amos, go, you Syria, flee to the land of Judah. There eat bread and there prophesy. Verse 12, that's verse 13. But never again prophesy at Bethel, for it is the king's sanctuary, and it is the royal residence. Then Amos answered and said to Amaziah, I was no prophet, nor was I a son of a prophet, but I was a sheep breeder and a tender of a sycamore fruit. Then the Lord took me as I followed the flock, and the Lord said to me, go, prophesy to my people Israel. You know, Amos was from the southern part of Israel. You know, there were two divided kingdoms after Solomon. We have the upper kingdom controlled by Jeroboam with 10 nations. Then we have Judah at the south. And then he said, don't prophesy here anymore. And he said, well, I never wanted to prophesy. I was just minding my business when God called me and said, go and prophesy. I said that very stylishly to say I never wanted to be a pastor. No, I never wanted to be. I wanted to be a medical doctor and make money and just be big and big. You know, if you come from Africa, there are some professions you go into. Dr. Songo, there are some professions you go into. If you're not an engineer, you're not a doctor, you're not an architect, you want to be a pastor. You know, there's no money, there's no fame, there is no, all kinds of stuff. I said, no, you don't want to be a pastor. And I said, I'm not going to be a pastor. So I never wanted to be. So, but I was minding my business. That's the point I was going to when the Lord called me. And my call was not a very good one as a messenger of God. I'm not qualified to be a pastor. I wasn't qualified, and I'm not still qualified. But God's mercy takes me to where I am today. There are so many responses to God's calling. Some people would respond positively. My response wasn't good. In Isaiah chapter 6, verse 8, Isaiah 6:8, I'm not proud of it. I'm not proud of it. I'm very sorry to share that, but it's just my story. Also, I heard the voice of the Lord saying, whom shall I send, and who will go for us? Then I said, here I am, send me. When I heard that voice, God called me. I said, here I am, do not send me. That's what I told God. I said, do not send me. Because I just didn't want to be. I was very active in the church. I was the youth leader. I was the choir leader. I was doing very best I can in the church. I was a master guide. I'm still master guide, invested master guide. I did everything. I just didn't want to be a pastor. I can do anything. I want to become everything. The highest level, I want to be an elder, not a pastor. But God had a plan. And when he called me, I said, I am not going to be a pastor. So one day, a conference president came to our town, our district. He didn't know me. He saw me from afar. He said, young man, come. The Spirit of the Lord told me that you are a pastor. I said, thank you, sir. So many people have told me that. The elders in the church, they've told me, oh, we saw this gift in you and all of those. And I said, thank you, elder. I don't want to. So I said, thank you. I was telling the president of the conference. I said, thank you. I don't want to be. And then a couple years later, the church evangelist came. He never knew me from anywhere. He saw me. He said, young man, come. The Lord told me that he has called you to be a pastor. I said, thank you. I don't want to be. So I was very stubborn, and I'm not proud to say I'm stubborn. I was stubborn. Let me put that very way. I didn't like it. And when I look at my story, I see so many faces just like David. I see a lot of how I've moved from one character to another character. And I want to read Jonah chapter 1, verses 1 to 3. Jonah 1, now the word of the Lord came to Jonah, the son of Amittai, saying, arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and cry out against it, for their wickedness has come up before me. But Jonah arose and fled to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. He went down to Joppa and found a ship going to Tarshish. So he paid the fare and went down into it to go with them to Tarshish from the presence of God. I want to stop there. I see myself sometimes, maybe my name should be changed to Jonah, because when I wanted to be baptized, the last name I wanted, I say Emmanuel, because I want God to be with me. My middle name, I chose it during baptism. In Africa, we do that. You said, what name do you want to, you look at the characters in the Bible. I just wanted Emmanuel. I want God to be with me. That's all I want. So, when God called me, I ran away for 6 years. I said I didn't want anything to do with being a pastor. It takes 6 years in Africa, particularly in Nigeria, to study medicine. My friends that were saying we're going to study medicine, they went and graduated. I ran to exile. I walked myself into Egypt. I was enslaved by my own conscience, and everywhere I go, I was meeting brick walls. I remember 3 occasions when I wrote exams. I passed those exams, and when I go into the interview, they look at me, and they take my paper, tear it, my document, trash it, and say, we don't want you here. And when it kept happening, the first time, the second time, the third time, at 1 in the morning, I came out, and I look up, I said, God, but why are you forcing me? Why are you standing in my way? I said, I don't want to be. You have called me, but I said, I don't want to be. It's not by force. I said, okay, let's make an agreement. Allow me to go to medical school. When I finish from medical school, I'll come back. And I'll go and study theology, and I'll become a pastor. I believe God was just laughing at me like, you don't know what you're talking about. So I remember that night, 1 a.m., I came out and said, but why are you blocking me everywhere I go? I had a mentor then that was, it's now late, and he said, but how long are you going to struggle with God? Will you just allow God to do what he wants to do in your life, and you will have peace of mind? I want to let you know this. If you don't have callings, no problems. But if God called you and you run away, you're going to suffer for that. Yes, you pay dearly for that. For 6 years, I was a wanderer. Everywhere I go, I was rejected. They just didn't want to see me. And I said, but I passed the exam. Look at this. We don't want to see you. For no reason, they just rejected me. And I was enslaved. God said, don't go to Egypt. I went there just like Jonah. Sometimes I feel like maybe my name should be, Jonah should be added to my name, because I behave like Jonah. Sometimes I look at God. Why did God really want me? And I saw that God wanted to save me. That was why he wanted me. Not because God could call any other person to fill my position. He could call so many people to do the same thing better than I can do. But God wanted to save me. And that's why he never let me go. He was just holding on me and say, hey boy, you don't know what is in front. I'm just trying to save you. I never had peace until I surrendered. If you receive a calling from God and you run away, that peace will never be there. No matter what you do, unless there's no calling. But if the calling is there, it's a regret that will follow. And I'm just appealing to any of you. Your call may not be to the pastoral ministry. It may be called to lead your family. And if you don't do your responsibility, it comes with regrets. God can call several leaders in so many ways. Not everybody will be a pastor. God can call in so many ways. But the point there is that if you receive the calling of God, you say you will hear a voice behind you. Do not ignore that. Turn it to the left, onto the right. Don't ignore that voice. What is God calling you to do today? What is God calling you into today? What does God want you to do? What is He requiring of you? What is He asking you to do? To be a good parent? To be a good leader? To accept Jesus? To obey and follow? To faithfulness? God is calling to every one of us to all of those. But when we neglect that, it comes with regret. And we can see all of those back into Genesis. From Genesis, everything goes back to that. We see those who rejected God's call, it came with a regret. Now, Jonah chapter 1, verse 5. But the Lord sent out a great wind on the sea, and there was a mighty tempest on the sea, so that the ship was about to be broken up. I got to that point before I say, God, please, I surrender now. God sent that wind, and the sea was tempestuous, but God brought me back. Don't wait 6 years of your life. Even 1, 2, 3 years, you can't gain it back. Don't waste those precious times running away from God. Now, there was a Macedonian call. I call that a Macedonian call in Acts chapter 16, verses 9 through 12. Acts 16, 9 through 12. A Macedonian call. And a vision appeared to Paul in the night. A man of Macedonia stood and pleaded with him, saying, "Come over to Macedonia and help us." Now, after he had seen the vision, immediately we sought to go to Macedonia, concluding that the Lord had called us to preach the gospel to them. Therefore, sailing from Troas, we ran a straight course to Samothrace, and the next day came to Neapolis. And from there to Philippi, which is the foremost city of that part of Macedonia, a colony, and we were staying in that city for some days. So my story about that is, I come from Macedonia. I was working after I finished from the seminary back in Africa. I spent 4 years in the seminary back in Africa. I came to Andrews University in Michigan, spent 5 years, and I was working, and after I worked as a hospital chaplain for 5 years, I got a call from Texas Conference, come to Austin. So he talks here, Paul recalled that vision, come to Macedonia. But God knew that this guy that is running everywhere, every time I call him, he will run. And now I say, come to Macedonia. This guy is going to run again. I know him. And then he said, I'm going to send somebody to him. Then he sent Pastor John to me. So, when I came, how do you think that happened? I was hired 15th of September. In October, I met Pastor John. I never knew him. And that very day that he saw me, he picked interest in me. He didn't say something when he was talking about the Frisbee. He happened to be a very good Frisbee player. He played more than everyone. He got the highest mark. Everything, he was really good. So I feel like, this guy is really good, with the Frisbee. But the point is that God knew that I would need a helper. We call it a helper of destiny. I would need a helper. Somebody would have to guide me, mentor me, hold my hands, and lead. And that was exactly what Pastor John has been doing since the day I met him. And I tell you, I say this because we were not in the same district. He saw me that very day, and every Sabbath, I tell you, he sent me a text. He calls me, do you need anything? Every time, do you need anything? I feel like, this guy is too nice. He's just too nice to me, So, when I tell you my coming down here to Stone Inn is by divine appointment, it wasn't just, I wasn't sugarcoating it. It was a divine appointment. Because as Paul said, we moved from different parts of the city, starting from Crosslink, wonderful family from Crosslink. I love them so much. They are here today. I see you, all of you. And so Cedar Park to St. Marcos. If you read that text, it's talking about how Paul moved from those cities and came to the chief city of Macedonia. So, And God directed the steps back to Stonehill. They shared me with Cedar Park, shared me with San Marcos, and Pastor John said, we don't want to share him anymore. We want him right here. So, Pastor John, I see our divine encounter as we read from the book of Psalm 32, verse 8. I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will guide you with my eye. If we allow God, he will teach us, he will guide us in the way we should go. I don't know how many of us are waiting for God's leading. I don't know how many of us are at a juncture that we don't know what to do. We are confused. We don't know if we should turn right or turn left, go back or move forward. It's just a cloud of confusion. Let's trust in God and claim this Bible promise, because God is faithful. I will guide you in the way you should go. I will guide you with my eyes. If we surrender to God, he will definitely do that. So, when I see my relationship with Pastor John back and forth, sometimes I see Moses and Aaron. I say, God, you're calling me this time around. I'm very incapable. I have all these deficiencies. And he said, don't worry, I'm sending Pastor John to you. Then he said, and then I look at my relationship with Pastor John as that of Moses and Joshua. Okay, you have, Moses was, mentoring Joshua. Joshua was a lieutenant. And Pastor John has been that to me, helping me day by day as I grow in the ministry. Then again, I come to the New Testament. I see our relationship as that of Paul and Timothy. So I'm your son in faith, right? Yes. So, Pastor John, you are my Paul. I'm your Timothy. And then, again, I look at Paul and Barnabas. Then I'm now Paul, you are my Barnabas, because you are a son of encouragement.